In our last video, we were discussing the collectibles tracker, and then we spoke about the various files that we need to create for it. For example, the item types, status, attachment types, and then also we spoke about creating the various tags. So what we're going to do now, because these are just lists, we're going to create the schemas so that we create it for the app so that it works, and then you'll also create the collectibles form to capture the collectibles themselves. So in our GitHub project, SithasoDaisy5, you can run this locally, or you can just go to the one that is running in the Vercel space, which is this here. So we're going to use a low-code approach in relation to creating the various files that we need. For example, you go to the playground, there's a table builder there and other builders. So we start with the table builder, we click add, and then what we're going to do, we're going to have a tags table. This is a tag, and then tags. Yeah? And then we want the ID to auto increment. We need an auto chooser. An auto chooser is like this one here. And then a column chooser is this column chooser here. Because this is just a list, it's going to have two columns. You don't need a column chooser. Then we use a table, and then we use a model. This is a table preference dialog methodology. But now we use a table, which is this, and then if you use a model instead of this preference dialog. So we defined our tags table. The table name on the database will be tags. A single tag is a tag, and then multiple tags are called tags. So this is used like when you want to delete a tag and things like that and stuff on the prompts. And then auto increment, we'll use auto increment for primary keys. You need an auto chooser, which is like that, and then no column choosers, and then use table and the model. And then we click apply to create our table. Now, in the collectibles, the tags are these ones. So instead of people typing multiple tags, they can just choose. So that's the whole point. And then there's status here, and also there's type. So we also need that, and also we need the file types as indicated in the admin. So let's create item types. And then we create another one called item types. Item types. So a single item is an item type. Multiple items are item types. And then also going to have an auto increment, alpha chooser. Look, you can decide to have an alpha chooser or not, depending on how many things are there. So in most of the cases, it's just proper to have it so that you can quickly search. It's used for filters. And then what we also need is the status and attachment types. And then the status, which is the status, auto increment, alpha chooser, use table, and user model. And then attachment types. Attachment type. Attachment types, auto increment, alpha chooser, use table, user model. And then we have 4 tables now, which is 1, item types, attachment types, status, and text. But now the main table, which is going to be collectibles based on these ones, we also need. So we're also going to have collectables and collectables table, collectable, collectables, auto increment, alpha chooser, column chooser. We'll need a column chooser that will show you the column. For example, a column chooser, it hides columns. When you want to show them or hide them, use a table and a model, then you click apply. So we have defined which tables are going to be in our database. Okay. But what we need to do for each table, it needs to have fields. For example, if we were saying that this is a table, then the table name singular plural will be the fields in the table. So we need to have fields for each of the lists and then the collectibles. What we need to do, because the item types, attachment types, status, and the tags are just lists. So our definition for the tables in the database is going to be very simple. It's going to just to be a column called ID and then the name. The name will be each of the names that is provided here. So what we do is we have functionality here to create those schemas easily. So attachment types, this is a list. So what we're going to do is to click list here. So yes, attachment type, yes. And then collectibles is not a list, but we can just do that also to create the basic fields, and then item types, and then status, and then tags. So in our system designer, what this has happened now, what this has done is to create the various fields that we're going to use. For example, if you go to fields here, the system has created two fields, the ID and the name, which this one will be sitting at row 1, column 1, and row 2, column 1. So this is not a column type, this is a text box where it will enable us to enter the information that we want to add in relation to the attachment types. For example, if we go to a preview here, this is how the form will look like. So, for example, we're going to enter the attachment type when we're defining which item types the user will select on. So, for example, this will be picture, and then as soon as you click save, it will save to the database, and it could be receipt. This will help us predefine items that we're going to use in the database as attachment types so that we have a drop down for them, So the column, we don't want it to be visible on the table, because if we preview how the table is going to be defined, you see there's name there. So when it shows our attachment types in a list, it will show us the name, because we've said that the column type is none, so it won't actually add it anyway. So we can change whatever we want to change in relation to this. This is this field here. This is this field here. So which is basically, it will show like this when we're using a preference dialog. But if you use a model, it will show like this. So what we've done now is define the look and feel of our user interface. You preview it, it will show this attachment type, and then on the table it will show just the name of the attachment type. So it's going to be like that for also the collectibles, because the collectibles, we just said they follow the same schema. Add collectible, list collectibles, So change that as you're going along. And then item types is also the same. Add item type, which basically will be these training cards and things, and then etc. etc. Also with the status, add status, list the status, and also tags. Now what we need to do is to define the display value. For example, the display value will be shown when the attachment type is deleted, and the item type is deleted. So we want it to show the name. Like for example here, if you say delete, it's saying confirm delete attachment type because we defined the display value to be table name in this particular case. So we're saying that if we click delete when we're in a table like this, use the name to confirm the deletion. So tags also use the name. The primary key is a unique identifier of that record in the database. So this is going to be the ID. And because we do not have we do have an alpha chooser, which basically means that when there's more than one records, then we can like select the, it filters your table to show you which record meets that particular criteria in case you wanted to do a quick search, So in this particular case, we have alpha choosers, which is these selectors here. So they will define themselves based on the name of the particular items that we want there. So column chooser will also have it for the collectables, which is fine. For the other tables, we don't want it because it doesn't matter. There's just two columns. Then we use table and then we use edit. Now, before we go through to creating the collectables here, what we need to do is basically create the database that will hold these particular items. So we have installed Laragon, and we're running our Laragon web server. We're going to go to Heidi SQL, and then we're going to create a new database. Here, Laragon MySQL. Let's just create a new database. Create a new database. Let's call it collectibles. Collectibles, no? Yes, and there's a collectibles database there. No? It's created. Now, the database is created. What we need to do is to generate the code for each of the lists first, and then we'll go into the collectibles table. So let's generate the code, because I was saying that this is a low code tool. So attachment types, MySQL REST API, we're going to be using that. Let's generate the code that we need. Keep item types, let's also generate the code that we need. Status, let's generate the code that we need, and then tags, generate the code that we need. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to open attachment types first. So attachment types, this generates the code that we're going to use in our application to create the user interface and the CRUD functionality. So let's go to this here. Open your database and execute the script to create a table. Create table. Fine. This schema here is not optimized. So for now, we'll just use it as it is. So query, we execute that script, create the table, duplicate column ID. Oh, we, all right. Primary key. Integer ID. I don't know. Okay, we'll try this. I think there's something wrong with my SQL statement. Let's execute this again. And will be removed in the future release. Okay, cool. Now let's see. Let's refresh. Attachment types. There we go. So it has a name and an ID. So let's just edit this. You see auto increment. Yeah, perfectly fine. So we do the same with the other tables. The item types. Open that. We do the same. We take the primary key. Put it there. Okay. Do the same. Exist item types. Collectables query. We execute the statement. Wow. What am I doing? Item types. Okay. And then status. The schema of all of these tables basically the same as the ID and the name. So what we can do is just use the same command, status, and then text. I'll have to update the app to actually do this thing in a proper way. And then text. Then I execute the command. So we've refresh. Refresh. Okay. Collectibles. There we have tags. Here's the data. Status. Item types. Attachment types. So we have created the schema for the tables that we need. We know that our database is collectibles. Now let's create a B4x project based on what we want to design here. We'll just start with the small things, bit by bit. Now, it's the B4J. You have set up your development environment so that you can create projects. And we'll go to new, and then SD5 MySQL REST API. That's what we're going to use, So we click it, and then we're going to call this SD5 Collectables, because that's the project that we're going to use. Now, first thing that we need to do is SD5 collectables. Collectables. Okay. Collectables. So our database is collectibles. So what we need to do is do some changes. Collectables in the files that will access the database. We have an environmental JSON file here that we need, and then an API that we're going to use. This API speaks to the database. So we open that, and then this is PHP CRUD API. So this is collectables. Currently, our configuration when we're installing MySQL, it was localhost, the password was root, there was no password, the username was root, there's no, you see? So what we're going to do is to save this, because we're saying to the PHP API, just do our database to be collectibles. Then the second thing that we need to update is the environmental JSON file, so that our app knows that we are using the collectibles URL. Because what's happening is, actually, it's this here. SD5 collectibles. Banano will create a folder called SD5 collectibles. Now, you can leave the API key as it is, or you can use your own API key. But the API key that is here should be the same as what is on the ap.php file. Yeah, so this should be the same. This is the database backend. This here is the front end. So they need to say the same things. Now, what we do next is we are going to create our application. Our application, when it starts, it uses the environmental variables, and then it initializes PG index. Now, PG index is this here. It loads the base layout of our application. This is the base layout that must exist in all the applications that we have. So basically, that is that. So if we run this now, what's going to happen is going to create our CSS, HTML, and JavaScript files for our applications. But basically, it's just going to be a blank application. So it's going to do nothing much. But what we'll do is to take the files that we created for our lists, and then those will go through to the admin portion of our application, because those are things that needs to be set up before we start capturing our collectible items. So let's run the application and see what it is going to do at this particular moment. So what it's doing now is converting all our B4x code to CSS, HTML, and JavaScript. We have not turned on remove that code here for tree shaking the application, but it's something that we can do, which will also make deployment lighter and only use the components that were actually used in our application. So we run the application now. There's basically nothing on our tree, but we see that it's showing that particular title. So for now, let's just close this, and then we're going to build our application. Okay, when we ran our application, B4J started Upstart, so it initialized banano, which is our B4x to JavaScript transpiler, and then with all of the settings that are there, it published the application to a publish folder. We had indicated that our publish folder in relation to the application is going to be C-Laracon www. And then the subfolder there will be that one there, ST5 collectibles. So if we go through to Laracon www folder, there's a folder there called ST5 collectibles, which is basically what has been converted from B4x here to assets, scripts, and styles. Styles is our CSS. Scripts is our CSS. Assets is whatever is on the assets in terms of the B4x, but as I've indicated before, this project is not shaken, so that's why you're seeing a lot of other things there. So this will be what you will be deploying as a final app on your public web server. So what actually happens is the body of the page is basically blank when the app starts, which is what happens here. And then we load the base layout. The base layout is made out of a few components. The first component is the drawer that holds all of the things, and the child component on the drawer will be app drawer underscore content. Now inside there we have a drawer menu. App drawer.side content, we have a drawer menu where our navigations will be sitting. Just like in our app here, we have a drawer and it's a menu and it has our items here. So as you saw in the previous video, that was blank for our application. And then we have the app nav bar. The app nav bar is basically this here. So and then the content area is this space here in relation to this, which is what is called a page view here. So the app nav bar here is sitting inside the drawer, doesn't have a back button, but does have a logo image as you saw, which basically is this logo image on the app, particularly showing this particular icon. And then the shape of the logo, and then welcome to SithasoDaisy5 template, which is what was there. So we can change also this title via code, and then all other settings. So you put components on a layout and then you set up their properties. Like for example, these ones have a parent ID because we want them to sit inside this particular drawer component here, where the child is the name of the component and then the content. So in most of the cases, you will not change or remove or delete anything within the base layout. It's not recommended to do anything. You can just make items invisible and things like that, but most of the cases you won't delete anything. The app must have a page view, it must have a drawer. Those are the two main things. If you don't want to have a left side navigation, then you can just remove this. If you don't have an app bar, then you can just remove this. But it does need to have a drawer, and it does need to have a page view that will sit, because the page view is where your app navigates to, and then what we're going to do is we want to update the title of the app nav bar, which is app nav bar title is also as. So there's a script here to do that. So what we're going to do is to add this here. So update title to the main app title basically means that go to main, get the app title, and then write that thing. And then what it needs after that is to create the drawer menu, and then must run this until it completes it. And so it's like a promise. So create the drawer menu. In the drawer menu, what we're going to do is to add all the things that we need to add. So we're going to uncomment this, and then we call this admin, because remember in our Excel spreadsheet for this, these are basically sitting in admin. So we have item types, then we change this to item types. We have status. So what basically we're saying is create a parent item called admin. Don't worry, the key here, it doesn't matter for now. And then the item types. But in most cases, you can just rename this admin. Yeah. So these are going to be links in our drawer menu, and then we have tags. And then we have attachment types. Okay. Now what we can do here, as you can see, add item child, we can have icons. So we can use font awesome icons for this. Let's go to font awesome. We need to use SVG icons. So let's just say, for the sake of this, we're going to get let's see, a tag. We want to use the free items. There's a tag. So these are tags. Yeah. So we're going to download that one. Go to SVG, and then you click download. Text solid. Then what you do is go to assets, text solid.svg. Then we go to files, we add this there, download text svg. See, so it's going to go to the assets files. Remember, this is the assets, so it will be sitting somewhere here. So assets, solid text, and then let's look for something like an attachment. The paperclip, awesome. SVG, paperclip, solid. Go to files, add files, paperclip, solid. Attachment types, assets, paperclip, solid. What can we use for status? Let's see if we have something. Status. Let's see. Maybe we can just use. Let's just see. Warning. Yeah, maybe for status we can use that. I don't know. Triangle, exclamation, whatever. You know, when you choose icons that make sense to you, you know. Yeah, you choose icons that make sense to you. Then for the other one, probably just whatever. What are we calling it? Item types. Okay, cool. It's an item, so it could be anything. You know, it could be a bicycle, it could be whatever. But I mean, it's a collection of things. You know, files, ball. You know. So it's a collection of nice items and all sorts of other things. So I like the bullseye, so I'll use the bullseye solid files, bullseye solid, rename bullseye solid. Cool. Let's sync this. We're going to create a folder called images so that everything is sitting under there in a nicely structured way. Okay, so what I've done now is to change the load the base layout, updated the title, create the drawer menu, which is basically doing this. And then, for example, there we can say collectibles, which is our app functionality. Collectables, and then now when each of these is clicked, it should go and do and open the expected page. So collectibles, do something. Item types, do something. And then status, do something. Because what happens here is the drawer item menu is clicked, so we get the prefix which will be PG, and then get the suffix which will be item types. And then if the prefix is PG and then the suffix is collectibles item type status, then you're going to do something. Tags, okay, it's tags, and then K and K's attachment types. You see, we currently don't have users in our system or anything like that. But what we're going to do is to do something like pg.info.show, stuff like that. Now, what we're going to do is we have to create the various pages for our application. Now, we know that we had created couple of files, downloads, we created a couple of files, attachment types, so let's open them. So attachment types, the first thing that you do, add this to pgindex.browserapp.database schemas, but we're not using browser app. So what this tells our app is that we're going to have a table that we're going to use. Add database schemas is there. Now we have a database table called attachment types, as we saw in our thingy here. There's attachment types. So this is basically what it is saying, that we have a table called attachment types. There's a field called IT, is auto increment. So the primary key is auto increment. There are strings, which are text, attachment type, which is the name, and then integers, IT, for that particular table. So we're defining this one so that we don't have to give it to our database classes each and every time we want to connect to the database. The database system here can just go and read the definitions of what we need. For example, if we had to use the attachment types in various scripts from different code models, we might have to specify the data schema of the database. So instead of doing that, we just tell the app that we have this table that we're going to be using. So the system must know that it is a table like that. And then what happens is, then we draw item child, blah, 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 blah. We've already done this here when we're creating this. You see, we called it attachment types. So we can, I think for the sensibility, we can just change that to that. Attachment types, and then change this here so that no one is confused. because it's based on the table name. Okay, and then for case attachment types, show pg attachments dot show. So we go there, attachment types, we want to say pg attachment types dot show, but then this doesn't exist. What we need to do is to create a code model project, code model, we call it pg attachment types. Okay, and then what we're going to do is to copy all of this code that is here. We're going to paste it here, and then just go and clean it up. By cleaning it up, we've created the table. We just remove this portion of it out. So when pg index attachment types is clicked, it shows the pg attachment types show. It calls the pg attachment show method. Now the show method, what it does is to execute the script here. Now what we need to do is create the layout attachment types view. Now we're going to base this layout on this table view. So let's open Designer. Let's save this as that layout there, attachment types view, which basically is indicating that that's the layout that we need to use. So this one here is a template to use. So it's going to update the navbar title, called pg index update title, which basically shows attachment types. We can comment this thing out because basically sometimes it's just not necessary. And then build attachment types table, which basically we need a table called attachment types. So we have created our layout, and if we open it, it has some schema that is there. So the table that is there is table L. Now we rename this to attachment types. That's all that we need to do. Okay. Now, which basically builds this thing. And then there's also a model, but now the model is not here. So what we need to do, we can just add a model here. Okay. Custom view, we look for a model. There it is. And then we rename it to be model attachment types. So a model can sit outside the main container. Okay. So normal circumstances, okay, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy this model here, copy, and then I'll paste it here so that we just complete our template, because we're going to reuse this particular template for other pages also. So I'm going to just call it MTL. Okay. Now, because we're using the table model preferences, so we have our TBL and things like that. If, for example, we were to remove these two lines here, yeah, and then go to that designer and go to tools, generate members. Come on. We're going to have to click there and click there, generate members, and then it will generate our members for us, which is there in that one. You see, so that's how you basically do it. But because now we're using a low-code tool now, so these things are created for us. So it builds the table. So what it says is the title of the table is having an alpha chooser, doesn't have a column chooser. When we're saying that the column chooser column is the name, né? So it was basically being based on this here, display and alpha chooser field. So it's building the code based on other things. And then we gave our title to be plural, and then singular and all sorts of other things. See? So, and then it builds the model. So the model is basically I'm going to comment this one out. The model. The model is basically okay. There are a few things that I've forgot to do here. We need to rerun this again. So attachment types. This is our page fields. We want, when an entry is being added, to focus on the name. Yes, and then it's required, it's active. And then we want to order by the name also. So it's visible. Visibility. Okay, the item is not visible on the model. Yeah, it's going to look like that. Let's just generate it again. Attachment types. Run. Oh, on the model, the locations. Okay, no, that's cool. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's copy this again. Attachment types. Yes, there's the complete script. I'll remove this one. Okay. Excuse me. We've done that. We're going to comment this one out. See. So edit attachment type. Build the model. There we go. Now, building the model is building the grid, where, for example, we have a row and columns. And then we build the grid, and then we have our components for entering the various information that we need, which basically what we're doing is we're building a grid we're building this model like this. So there's a row there, there's a column, and all that. So we're adding the name, where, for example, the name of the attachment type needs to be added. Yeah. So that's what building the model does. And then we mount the attachment type. So if there's attachment types captured in the database, we go there, you order everything by name, and then we just add everything else in the system. So the code is commented as much as possible. But each and every time this attachment type is shown, it goes to the page view, as you saw in base layout, which is this page view here. Clears it, and then it loads this layout here. So this here is a container, then a row, then a column, then the table itself, and then the model inside the page view. And then it changes the title of the navbar in the base layout, and then build a table, build the model, and then load. Why is this happening? This is a single page application, so we need it to behave in that particular way. Now what we're saying here is, for example, use the schema that we defined, which basically this is what is happening here. We define the schema here. Use that schema that already defined, and then we're using an API file, which is this one here, and then we're using an API key, which basically means that it compares what is here with an API key and with what is defined here. Those, if they match, then you are able to execute the scripts in the database. If they don't, it won't. So clear where, and then order by, and then you execute the select all, which basically means I select all the records in the database. And then if we're adding a record, the mode is create, you add an attachment type on the model, and then you set the defaults, and then you focus on the name, etc., etc. Here, if you want to edit, here is want to clone. If there's cloning functionality, here is want to edit the row, and then here if you want to delete an attachment type, you know, and then change row, and then validate, you know, because the name and the ID needs to be specified. So when you're doing add mode, yeah, so these are all our generated code for the application itself. Now let's do this. Let's try and run this. Excuse me. So we've finished our attachment types screen to predefine the kind of attachment types that will be used by the Collectables app. This, of course, is helping us establish the integrity of our data. So that we don't retype the attachment types, but just select them from a list as a drop down. And now it's compiling. The B4x SithasoDaisy5 is a little bit large depending on what you want to use, but okay. There is our, let's just maximize this to be 100. There is our drawer. This won't do anything because there's nothing there. Item types, there's nothing there. Attachment types. Now it's showing the table. So if you go to add, there it is, add attachment type. Attachment type, for example, is a picture. Let's say yes. Attachment details are incomplete because you know why? Because the ID is required. So let's go back to our code. Excuse me. Get attachment is valid. Let's do this. Let's comment this one out because it's an auto increment field. Then there's no need for the ID to be validated. But yeah, in any case, we can just, when we're setting defaults, we say this is app.new ID, next ID, you know, so that when it's creating a new record, then it already has something that's there. But it won't use it anyway because it's auto increment, so it won't use whatever we specify there. But I think for the just sake of continuity, you can either comment this out because we're not using it, or you just give it a next ID. Actually, you can do this here, but it's usually better if you just do it on add mode. txt id dot value is equal to app dot next ID, you know, so that you assign the next available ID for that. And also when you're cloning a record, clone mode. See, yeah, it has done it properly. It has done it properly. So yeah. So on add mode, we added that, and then there it is there. So it's things that I'll have to update with the code generator anyway. So Let's run our application again. In most of the cases, what I usually do is just don't make it a required field, because automatically it's going to be used by the system anyway. So I meant generated by the database when it's saving the record, because it's auto increment. So let's run the application again to see what is it that we will have done. So when the attachment types work, then basically means that the same methodology to create the tags, the item types, and all sorts of those is going to be working in a similar fashion. Attachment types. This is a picture. Yes, there we go. What else is there? This is a picture. This is a certificate. Let's clone it. Certificate. What else is there? Sales invoice. Let's clone it. Cloning is exactly the same as clicking add. So this one is a receipt. Let's clone it. Receipt. So we have our attachment types 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So when we're selecting these, when we're creating a collectible, it will be based on the list that we already have. So because we're using text boxes here, we can change them. So like this one now, certificate 1. And all that. Like for example, if we wanted to delete this one, sales invoice, yes, it doesn't exist. So let's add it back. Let's edit this one called certificate there. So what we've done now is to show you how to create, read, and then update and delete this. So if you select C there, P R S is like a filter that helps us to filter the records in the database. And then here, of course, we search, pick, the search only works after it has established the third characters. It doesn't search on one character or second character things. So our attachment types are saved, and then in our backend database, if we go to attachment types, data, there we go. So our ID is auto increment, our names are there, then basically meaning that we have converted this part of our collectables Excel spreadsheets into a web app that looks like this. So we're going to do the other screens and then make it work like that, and then we'll then delve into creating, then linking the main screen and then creating the rest of it. So okay, back to the background. We finished the attachment types that we did, and then what we're going to do then is to do the same for the other ones. The item types, we're going to go to fields, and then we also want it to be ordered by name, and then want also the focus to be on the name. It's 2, 1, and then the item type will look like that, and then on the table it will look like that, and then view, yeah, everything looks proper. This is how the form will look like. If, for example, this one we're going to say that it's going to be visible, so it is going to look like that, like, see. But now we don't want it to be visible, then we hide it. Okay, and then what we'll do, let's generate the code for the item types. Afresh item types. Okay, we also do the same process that we did before. We copy the database definition for the schema to our project. PG index, 8 database schemas. So, copy, paste it there, item types, and then we have our item types there. Then we create a page called item types. Projects, code model, item types. Then copy the complete code. Copy the complete code. And remove that there. Well, we know that we want to show item types in PG index, item types, to show item types, and then we've created the database already. And then we do have a table. We'll base it on that one. We save it as item types, and then we rename the table. And then we rename the model. And then we save it. And then in our logs, we have the dashboard command. Okay, let's just remove that one there. I updated the code a little bit. Okay, cool. I need to fix this one here. So I added that value. Yeah, add mode. Cloud mode. Okay, we'll fix that. Basically, most of our code is working fine. Okay, these are okay. We'll just ignore this noise. So that we don't have any errors in our application. Yeah. Ignore item types. We're done with the item types. Okay, now we need to do we did the attachment types, item types. We need to do the status. Let's just do the fixes that we needed to do. Order by name. Focus on name when we enter the thing. This is how it looks. Let's do visible to see how it will look like. Cool. And then we generate the code. And then we open the status again. And then we could do the same thing. We copy the database schema. As you can see now, we actually just copying the code that has been generated by our low-code tool, and then we're using that page status.show. Go to this one here, we paste the code there, and then we create the page code model, and then we copy all the code that has been created by our tool, and then just fix a little bit of things. Page status, this we've already done. We fix something here. We want a dashboard. Okay, cool. That one there. We fix with the thingy. And then the last one is our tags. Tags, fields, visible, order by, focus on. Order by, we want it to be ordered by, visible, that. Everything seems to be proper. Add a tag, listing, generate the code, open, yeah, and then we do the same thing. Index, tags, page tags dot show in our thing here. Create the page. You see, what we're doing is repetitive, so it all makes sense to have a low-code builder, because what it does is to help you just deliver your things. Let's comment this one because we don't have a dashboard. I need to update the generator to fix this thing, because it's going to be irritating soon enough. Okay. Now we have created tags, status, attempt types, and attachment types, and all of these things are now sitting in the drawer here. Now if we run our application, let's say that we want the item types to be the page that show. So what we can do is to go to the initialize subroutine and then just say that after everything else, show the item types, you know. So we run our application. We have our images, we have our item types. We forgot to create the layouts. Okay, now what we need to do, otherwise our thing will not work. Item types view is there. Status view is not there. So let's go there and save it. Save a status view. We'll rename the table to be status view. We rename the model to be model, and then we save it. Okay. And then status view is done. What else is missing? Tags. Okay. So tags view. Go to that one. We save as tags view tbl tags, and then we save the model. But anyway, if you don't create the layout, the application will actually complain that the layouts do not exist. So we have our views here created, then we run the application. The question is, can we use the same layout for different pages? Yes, you can. It just means that you need to change the events because the events currently are linked to TBL tags and MDL tags, TBL status and that. So you can use the same layout, but then you just need to change the table names to be that layout and then change the events. Like for example, here, TBL status. So whatever you decide to call your table, you just have to create it, to meet that particular need. But I think for ease of use, it's just better to create different layouts for the various tables in case in the future you might want to change something about the design of your user interface in relation to that particular table. So currently what we've done is to create the various lists, attachment types, item types, status tags, based on what is it that we want to do in designing our application here. Item types we've done, status we've done, attachment types we've done, and then tags. So our item application as it starts, it goes to item types. So let's add the item types in our database. Trading cards, what else is there? Sports jersey. I'll do the clone again. Sports jersey, balls and equipment, shirts, as you can see, it's also possible that we are able to just import this information to the database from this Excel spreadsheet. But because for now it's actually a learning, curve, so we are just going to item types. We have the new ones, and then status, on hand, sold, destroy. On hand, sold, destroy. For example, my own. Then can decide that we want to just delete my own. And then we did the attachment types. If, for example, we wanted to do the tags, tag athlete signature, for example, tags. Because tags also can be used in different collectibles, sports memorabilia, what's it? Memorabilia. Wow. And then what else? Player autograph, player autograph. So it basically means that when you're designing your database, you need to first figure out how you can structure exclusive item, how you can structure your database to make it work for you and easy for you. So we have defined our list now. We have balls and caps and helmets. We have statuses. We have tags. we have attachment types that we can use. Now the next step will be to actually create the collectibles items that we will be using. And as we saw, all of this already in our database, tags, attachment, everything is saving as easy as possible. So the next step is to actually create the collectibles, and then we try to design it in terms of how it means that. But let's assume that we do not want this in online editing for these particular tables. So what we can do is attachment types go through to the column definition of the table. Now build the table. As you can see here, we have column text box. So what we can do to don't make it a column text box, we can just make it a normal column so that we don't have inline editing. Okay. Attachments, item types, build the table. Also here, just make this false. You can add different types of column types. Page status, build the table. And yeah. Because what also happens is, should you have a lot of records there, it's better to use inline editing when it's extremely needed. So because in this particular case it's not needed per se, because we can edit our items using a model, then there's no need to particularly have the inline editing functionality. But there are instances where you need to have it, and then you have to have actually get it going, and make it work. So we run our application, and then we test it and see that everything is working. So when you deploy your app, of course, you need to recreate the schema of the database and then import it, so you can actually export the database directly from here when you want to deploy your app to a public web server. So let's see how this thing goes. There it is. So we no longer have inline editing here, you took it off, so that's why you just have the labels, but you can edit it here. Training cards. So yes. So as you can see, this is yes or no. So we need to change that to save cancel, so you can change that via the model themselves. Admin, item types, status, tags, and all that. So let's fix that. Let's fix those models to have yes or no. So we need to go to each of them. Go to that one. Yes, caption, save, and then no caption is cancel. Yeah, sorry. Save, item types, yes, caption, save, no, caption is cancel. Let's save status view. Yes. Caption save. No. Cancel. And then text view. Yes. Caption save. And then no. Cancel. But then because we might use our one here, so we might as well just do this one here. Yes, caption save, and then no, we say it's cancel, because that's the template that we'll use. So I'll just have to update the B4x template to use this one here. So if we run our application for all our models now, we'll use the new captions that we have defined. So as you can see in the properties of the components, you can update them to suit your needs in relation to how you want your application to look like and feel. But this is a simplified version in terms of how we develop the application to try to minimize the changes in the layout as much as possible, because most of the functionality that we need is just generated via code. But what we have seen here is for all of the pages that we have created, the way that we have created them is the same. We use a table, we use a model, it's CRUD functionality, we're adding records to a database, we're updating them, we're reading them, and then we're deleting them based on what we need. And this is just basic lists. But then when you're defining a complex user interface like the one that we'll do just now for the collectibles, we will see how all of this thing links together and works. So edit, save, cancel. You see it has changed now. Add, save, cancel. Let's go to another one. Item types, status, save, cancel. Let's go to text, save, cancel. Let's go to attachment types, save, cancel. So our application is working. We're able to have item types, we're able to have statuses, we're able to have text, we're also able to have attachment types. So all of this information is being used to capture the information of the collectibles. So basically, we have created the basic lists that we need in relation to converting everything that is here from item types, status, attachments, and then the text that are here. So the next step is actually to design this particular screen here where the actual collectibles are going to be created. So see you soon. Okay, now what we need to do is to actually create the collectibles screen. We're still going to do the listing and things like that, but let's do this screen. Each collectible has an image, a main image, and then it also has the item ID and all sorts of things in relation to what is going on here. So what we can do is to use the same column names that are here to actually build up the screen. So we have an item ID. So this is auto increment collectibles. We go there. So we'll use this auto increment. So this looks like this basically currently for now, but we need to structure it in a proper way so that it looks like this here. So we have an item name, status, and things. So we also already have a name there, which is basically this here. So we can change this to be the item name. So we're not going to show the visibility of the ID because we don't need it to be shown. So this one we're just going to make it a normal column, and then what we do is we do the status. The status is a select, the status is select there. So that needs to be sourced from the select list. So what we do, and let's this is on position 2. Let's clone another thing here, but now we're going to make it select, and then this is status ID, because it's going to take the status from the other list. This is an integer because the status table has a column called ID and then also name. So what we'll do here, we'll use the ID to create a foreign key linkages, and then on the status will show the name. It's required. Yeah. So we have the item name, the status. But now this is showing an item name on both sides of the column, of the row, sorry. So what we need to do is it's the same row, but then on each side. So the item name and then select status, so that's also required. Now, the other thing that we say, we have a current value and then a type. Current value and then a type. So we're going to create, this is at position 3. Yeah. So current value, this is a monetary value. We can clone this one, and then this is current value. Current value. Okay, this is a string or a double, whatever we call it. Default value, it's unknown, but as you can see here, there are values. So we'll save this one. Now this is going to be, this is on row 3. Status ID 2.2, this is on 3. It's a text box, it's on row 3, the first one. So this is not required because the current value we might not know. Column, let's say that we show money, because it also depends whether we want to show the column, but okay, let's perhaps just hide this one for now. And then the type, so we do the type, we're going to clone this one, and then we're going to call it type ID. The type now is an integer, and then this is 4, yeah, position 4, but then on 3, 2 also, but this is also required. We can make it column visible. So if we look at the columns now, item, status, type, it's fine. And then on the form design is item name, status, current value, and then the type. So we're close to creating our collectible screen like this. Now the description is a text area that cuts across the whole screen row, whole row. So let's clone this one, and then we make it item number 5. We make it a text area because it's taking the whole. We're going to call it description, and then it's a string because it will accept text. Then let's save this, and then it's going to sit on row 4. It's going to take the whole row. So There we go. So item name, just like that. So we're coming closer to this one. Now we need last evaluation, which is basically saying last valuation of the item. So you can clone this one again, make it 6. This is text box. Now the last valuation is a date, so we're going to make it a date picker. There it is. And then last valuation, and then last valuation. Now to store a string. So this is how our preference dialog will look at if we decide to do it like that, because preference dialog is just one item after another. But this here, meaning that this is a date, then we can select dates, So we will make this not required because we might not know the description. We can leave it also blank if we want. So this is in row 5, column 1. And then the next one is a wish list item. So we're going to go and do a checkbox. And then it's number 7. So we just call it wish list, and then wish list item. This can be true or false, so we'll just call it Boolean. And the default value is false, so we're going to make it a color of success. So it's visible, enabled, and active. So let's just add it there and make it to be item number 5 and then 2, so that it's in the same column row coordinates. So wish list item. See, now it means that for us to move this thing down, we need to set some margins and perhaps some paddings, but for now we'll just leave it blank, to show that it's how we can do these things. So current value, terms and conditions. Okay, I need to fix that one out. So what we do, this is a wish list item. Terms and conditions, there's nothing there. Privacy policy, there's nothing there. So we just save it so that it's proper. We use that in case there's terms and conditions, and it creates links and all sorts of things. Okay. Now the next phase is acquired from. So let's do that. Acquired from, acquired date. So acquired from is a text box. So let's clone that one there and make it item number 8. Acquired from. The string. Yeah. So this is on 6. Then acquired date is a date one, so we clone that one. We make it 9. And then we call it acquired date. Is it acquired date? Acquired date, yeah, acquired date. Acquired date. it's at 6.2, so that is side to side. 6.2 side to side. We seem to be going well. Acquired from, acquired to. If, for example, there were a lot of similarities in terms of where we're acquiring things to, we can make this also a drop down and define another list for the acquired to. Now the date here, that mustn't have time when it's displayed. So what we'll do, the date, acquired date, acquired from, this is not money, it's a normal thing. It's a normal thing. Acquired date, it will show a date. But now we can just hide this one because some of this information is not necessary. This one, we can also make it a check box so that one can choose last valuation with a date. Text area, we can just hide this one because it's not necessary to show it. And then let's see how we're faring up with this thing. Or the acquired the date pickers, we need to set that the display doesn't have an hour and time with there, because they're just date pickers, hour and time. Acquired date, there we go. Last evaluation, there we go. Now, yeah, acquired date. Now our collectibles display value is the name, and then the primary key is the ID, and the alpha chooser is the name also, which basically makes this fine. We'll have column chooser and that. Okay, cool. Now we're still designing our form. We keep on previewing how is it going to look here, and then a description, last valuation, acquired date, acquired from, acquired date, and then what else do we need? We need acquired cost, sale price, acquired cost, acquired cost, and sale price. Okay, so we're going to go there and do a 10 acquired cost. Click there. We do a 10 acquired cost. I guess this is meaning how much did we acquire the whole thing for. It's also a string. This might be unknown, you know, so we just leave it as it is. The column type is money. Column visible, let's perhaps just leave it not visible because you might not want to show all the information here. Oh, and also this is at 7. And row 7. And then 7.1, it will take the whole row now because there's just nothing there, you know. So acquired cost, and then sale price. Okay, we'll just clone this one and make it 11 and call it sale price. Sale price, in terms of the price, that will be row position. I don't have this thing here. Oh well, thought I had it. Okay, row position 7.2. So basically, acquired cost, sale price. Acquired cost, sale price. So it's sold or traded to, sale date. Okay. So that's the next one that we need to create. Sold to or traded to. So it's also the same thing as, let's clone this one, make it 12. Sold to, what's this, sorry? Sale date, or sold or traded to. Sold or traded to then sold or traded to, you make that 8.1. If you leave it at 2, it's going to create a blank. You see, there it is. There's no blank thing here. So we need to fix that. It's like it has moved it to the right. Yes. And then sale date. Sale date is actually a date, so we can clone one of those ones and make it 13. Clone, make it 13. And then this is sale date. Sale date also. So it's 8.2, this one. Let's save it. Move it down. 13. Sale date. Then this is 8.2. 8.2. We preview. So our design seems to be going very well. The item name, the status, the current value, the type, description, last relation, which leaves item, acquired from, acquired date, when was it acquired, acquired cost, and then Saiten Sangamalini, and then sold to, then sale date. Yeah. So we seem to be doing well. As you can see, the only required thing here for this collection is the item name, the status, and the type. Acquired from those information which that we're not going to make it compulsory because it might be unknown. So the next thing is the issue of the custom field. As you can see, they define some custom field here, but we're not going to go deep in terms of creating a system with custom field for now. So what we're going to do is do the website thingy and make it sit in row 14. So we'll clone this one, make it 14, and then it's called website. Okay, and then it's sitting at 9, and it's normal. It's a normal column. It's going to be an invisible column. Okay, and then the next one is manufacturer. Okay, let's create that one. 15. Manufacturer. So we have a manufacturer now. It's sitting at 9, 8.2 at 9.2. Okay, if we look at our form now, it's coming back together nicely. Website manufacturer. Of course, we can extend the height of the model, and then first offered, and then highest value. First offered is a date, so we can clone one of these ones that are here. And then first offered sitting at row 16. And then we're going to call it first offered. Now, as you can see here, we are using different field names, and we have made our field names to be lowercase in the database because it's just easy for us to make it like that. And then the titles, of course, say everything else in terms of what we want to see in relation to our database. So this is sitting at 10.1. Okay. At 10.1. Yeah. Because this was first offered in a particular date. Okay, let's hide the data type so that we make the screen to be a little bit more in the column type. Column type is basically, we'll see that later. Excuse me. You can also set the date, okay, visibility. Want most of these things to be visible except for the ID. So we order by name, and then we can focus on the name. Now I have an issue here of a lot of focuses on. We need to remove some of these things. Because you must have at least one focus component when the dialog is opened. So yeah, so we fix that in terms of our design. So currently we're going well. All of the fields are going to be active columns, and then we have an order by, focus on, and then we have the required ones. And then what we do is we're designing our form first offered. Now it's taking the whole row. So what we need to do is to first offered, then add the highest value. The highest value is the money column that we can have here. Which one is the money column here? So we can also clone whatever is there. We can clone this one. Let's clone this one because it's a money column. And then we'll make this 17. What is it called? Highest value. So we call this highest value, and then we change the total highest value. Okay, so we save it, and then we have 17 here, and then this is happening at 10.2 of our grid, because what we're doing here now is to create a grid system. So automatically, when we're specifying the locations of the components themselves, we are indicating where they are going to be placed. So what we need to add now is condition and the annual cost. So we go back to our design, condition percentage, so yeah, I think from the look of things, we're doing very, very well. We add a text box, and then we set this to be 18. Condition percentage, okay, we can just call it condition. and then condition percentage, a string. Yeah, so condition percentage, that's fine. You save it. Condition percentage, there it is. And then we set this to be at 11.1. Required, not necessarily, but I think we can always set this one to have a default value of 0, so or maybe 10%. So let's perhaps set it to be, let's set this one at 0. Set these ones at 0. At 0, all these money ones, so that at the end of the day someone enters something there or not, but we'll make it not necessarily a required field. But from what is happening right now, you can see the direction of what we're actually doing here. We designed our lists to store the information in relation to data integrity related issues, so that we don't have to retype all of those item types, statuses, and things. And then what we do here now is to design the collectibles form in relation to how it looks like here. So we add annual cost now, and then what we're going to do is to add annual cost. Let's clone this one, and then let's make this 19. It's going to be annual cost. Annual cost, it's also 11.2 because it's a money column also. It's a money column. If you do our preview, then we can see that our collectibles are actually happening very, very well, So as you can see, we've designed our collectible forms to almost be like the one that is here. Now the next thing is tags. So we'll store the tags of the collectible in it, but then we'll be able to choose from the provided list, So what we can do in relation to this is to add something that is called a group select, because it needs to have a multiple items that are selected. Let's just make this 20. I'm going to save it, and then I'm going to edit it in terms of column type. We don't want this to show per se. Maybe we can just make it a normal thing, but we're going to hide the column because we don't want it to show. Condition, we can see annual cost, we can see, let's just uncheck it. Now, what we do here is let's make visible to be hidden, because there's no need. Most of the things that are here, we know that they're active, so there's no need to show that also. Required, we know that there's only a few things. Order on, focus on. Let's just hide these columns for now. Maybe we can show this one, highest value. Maybe we can show the sale price to, or either sold to. That is on the table listing. So that will work well. Let me just see if we preview the table now. Yeah, item name, status type, last valuation, wish list item, sale price, sold to highest value, and the condition. Okay, maybe those are the ones that we'll do for now. Okay, now what we need on the, it's not annual cost, it's tags. So these are tags, and when they are stored, they are going to get stored as strings delimited by commas. So what we can use here is a group select that allows selection of multiple items at the same time. So let's set this to be 12.1, you know, and let's edit this. Let's add this. You see this one here. So if, for example, we say this is tag 1, tag 1, I'm just going to show you this as an example in terms of how will it appear. Tag 2, tag 3. These are just the options. So if you save this, it's going to show the various tags. You see? So one can select the various items that the tags fall into. So if we show this form design now, there we are. Just a second. Okay. Then here on the form we have the tags. Let's perhaps change the colors to another color. See. So let's do this. Let's go back. Tags, color, primary. Let's search for color hexer. Color hexer, I think. Maybe it will give me color hexer. This color is my name. Is that the one that I need? I think so. I think I just need the green color. It's this one. Yeah, it's the same thing. Let's just say green. And then we'll just see what's the color that it brings out. It's bringing out the next color. So what I'll do, I'll change the color here, active, to be that one. And then I save it. Yeah. So as you can see, yeah. So on the form itself, we have various tags, but what we need to do is to have these lifted up from the list of available tags, so that when we select what we want, then it just shows the ones that we need with a check mark. Okay, this doesn't look very good, but we'll basically have to sort it out. Okay, now one of the things that is in the collectibles is the main picture, so, and then there's also attachment. So we need to add a main picture here in relation to how we define it. We can move the picture there, we can move it to the bottom, but depending on where we want to place it in the application itself. So I'm going to just add it at the bottom. It's fine. Now we're going to have to add two things here, an image and then an image selector, a file selector. So let's make it an image, an image. This is going to be 21. and we're going to call it main picture. So this is the main picture, 80 by 80. Let's just make it to be rounded to XL. Yeah, the height is 80 by 80, so it's going to look like this. So let's apply it. The person can change it. Image.
Okay, I got it. Took a minute.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. So the image, as you can see here, we'll put it at 1.1, and we already said that 1.1 is not visible. So perhaps what we can do, make it visible, so that I can show you how it's going to look like. Let's do that. There is that. Okay, this is rather strange. Okay, so parking system. But anyway, let's hide that one. I'll have to fix that one out in terms of how it looks, because it's already here. You can see it here, So let's add a file selector. Let's make this to be 13, because we want it to be at the bottom of the page. 13.1. And then we need to have a file selector to be able to select pictures, So let's add a camera button. And then what we do is to say it's going to look like this. Select image. You can take picture, select image. The data type of this must be none, because we don't want to save anything in the database for this. So let's save it. And now this is going to be in 13.2. Not 13. What have I done? Actually. Okay. So main picture is the image, which is 13. Point 1. So the other one is what? Select the image. Let's make this one 14. Actually, it's not, man. It's 20 something. It's 22. Select an image. This is 22. Okay. Now this is 13.2, which basically is going to sit close to the image. So what we can do, we can do a preview now of this. Yeah, seems to be a little bit of a bug in the preview. Because this is 13.2 and image is a camera, and it's not rendering. We don't want this to be visible. Our app at the back end of it, which is this one, designer here, is using local storage, so, and now we're noticing that it's a little bit slow. Okay, we had set the main picture to be at position 13.1 and then the camera at position 13.2, and then the data type is none because we don't want it to be created in the database. And then if we preview this now, the image is going to be at the end of the page in the file selector. So this one is the camera. It's supposed to activate the file selector so that we're able to select the image that we put here. And then these are the various tags that we set. So the tags will be loaded from the database, and then a person can select the applicable tags in relation to the ones that are applicable for this. What we need to do, you see here, we need to add some padding on this so that we make it more user-friendly, and then we also need to center this image here so that it's at the middle of the page, just like this one, and then we will move these ones to the top of the screen. To do that, we'll just change the location, the row positions, and the row column position. So we'll make this 1.1 and we'll make this 1.2. So what it will do, it is just to change the positioning of the components to be at the beginning of the screen. So what we're going to do, because we want this to be centered, what we can do is to go to center children, make it visible, and then we select center children here, and also here, just in case, because that one is already centered by default. So if we preview the form now, we'll notice that the image has been moved to the beginning of the screen, so that when a person is capturing a collectible, the first thing that they need to do is to select an image for it from their images, and then capture the information that they need to capture there. And then after that, we save. Now, what we need to do is to put some padding on the tags, because the tags needs to show properly here. So we go to the tags component, which is that one there. And then what we need to do is to add some padding. So we're going to add padding on the left and the right hand side, which is x is equals to 2. And we also go to add padding at the bottom, which is equals to 2. And then the size of the component is small. And then we save it. And then what will that do is then put some padding around the components. As you can see here now, there's some padding there. We'll put a gray border here so that one is able to see that the tags are belonging in that box, Otherwise, we are close to finishing our user interface design based on what we initially had. Now, the next thing here that we can do is to add functionality for the attachments that are needed in relation to the particular document. We can do this on the same form, or can do it as a separate form. But for now, what we will show is how to use a model to create the form itself, and then add to functionality for the various items that are here. And we can decide that we're not going to use a model for this functionality, but just use the complete page to be able to capture the information that is here. But we will show that at some other stage, perhaps on the version 2 of this thing. So for now, we have developed our user interface to meet the other thing that has changed is the wishlist item here. So what we have done on the wishlist item is to use a component called checkbox legend. So it's a checkbox with a legend on top. So that is what we have used here. We haven't used the checkbox legend. The checkbox with a legend, and that is why it is showing in a proper way now, like proper, you know. So this is a wish list item. It will be yes if it's a wish list item, and if it's not, then we'll just leave it as that, you know. So the other thing now is the status and the type and the tags needs to be loaded from the database. So that is what we need to define for each of the various items that needs to be loaded from the database. So the status, we select S. Now the status is the status ID is an integer, but what we need to do is to indicate that this is being sourced from somewhere else. So we go to foreign table. The foreign table for the status is going to be the status table. We click on find to find the columns that are applicable to the status, and then the foreign key is the ID, which is what will be saved in our database, and the value to display is the name. So basically we are trying to create a drop down for the status, and then we apply this. And then we also go to item type, which is the type ID. The type ID is also going to be sourced from item type, so we go to foreign keys. This is going to be sourced from item types. We click search, and then we are going to display name each and every time we select a foreign type, an item type. Now the other thing is the tags. The tags also are going to be sourced from a particular table. Also, we go to foreign table. The tags that are going to be listed there are sourced from tags, and then the ID, and then the name. And then whatever is selected by the user will be saved from the selected items to the database. So currently what we're having here is status, type, and then text. Okay, let's remove these borders around the status and the type, because these are legends. So status, what we're going to remove is the border. We don't have a border there. We don't have a border, so let's just remove the border color and the background color. We don't want to have that. These are new properties that we've added. And then the status, and then the type. The type. Also, we don't have a border there. We don't want a border there. We added these properties because we wanted to properly set up the text border. So if you preview now, yeah, the borders are no longer there. So yeah. So basically, we're almost done with the user interface for capturing the collectibles. So what we need to do now is to generate the source code for the collectibles. So we generate the source code, and then we're going to import this to our application. So these are all the fields that are going to be there. The main picture, and then this is the table that we need to create to store the information. And then these are all the components that we need. And then everything seems to be going proper in relation to this. So what we need to do is to go to our project, and then we paste the code. So as usual, what we're going to do, that's our project. We add the data models that tell us, well, we're going to have a table called collections. This is in PG index. So we're going to have the data model. And then the second thing is to add the collectibles in the drawer. So the collectibles are there. Now collectibles, we need to show the collectibles page. So which is basically that one there, collectibles. And then what we need to do is to create the code model. We create the code model that is going to host our application page, and then we select everything that we have created via the low code tool, and then this we have copied to PG index. This is already there on the drawer creation. This is already there. Now what we need to do is to fire this command here to create our collectibles table. So we're just going to edit this quickly, and then go to Heidi, and then to the collectibles database where our information is going to be stored, which is that one. And then we fire a query, and then we're going to create our collectibles table. So let's do a refresh. There is our collectibles table there. There is the data in it. It's blank. So if we edit it, these are the fields that we have created. So we have an auto increment primary key there, and then we have the various fields that we want. As indicated earlier on, our tables at this current moment, they are not optimized. So there's no reason for us to worry about that then. Now the next thing that we need to do is to create the layout. So we use the existing template for the layout, table pref view, and then we save it as that layout collectibles, and then after that we change the table names, TB collections. We save the table name, and then we save the model to be model collections, and then we are done in relation to capturing our collectibles screen. So what we need to do, as indicated on, we have status that will load. Okay, this will get the required stuff. we're loading items from the items table for the collectibles so that it builds up the combo. We load the status also, and we also load the various text that we need there. So these, of course, are sorted by name, you know. So if we run our app now, our collectibles app now, set options from map over. Oh, these are the, okay, we'll sort this out a little bit later. Set options from map. These are supposed to load the group select. Okay. We're not saving this main picture. We can comment it out, and then we're not using this. We can just comment it out for now. Because what happens here, as soon as you select an image, it reads it out and then it assigns it to the picture. And then this is what gets saved in the database as a data URL. So let's try this thing out. Let's go there, start our application. The text will not be loaded because there is an error in the script, so I will fix that. But we'll just test the functionality now in relation to what we have captured. Fortunately, the tags are not compulsory. They are optional parameters that we can feed. So let's see now, how does our application look like in terms of us creating, excuse me, a collectible. Let's just wait for this thing to compile properly. So that it converts all our B4x code to CSS, JavaScript, and HTML. So what I've learned here is that you are able to take an Excel spreadsheet that is having a structure and convert it into an application. We've created lists first that we're going to establish data integrity between our tables, where we created item types, we created statuses, we also created tags that we will use in our application, and also created attachment types. We have not created a screen for the attachments as yet. And then we also created our collectibles screen now, which is what is appearing here. So if, for example, we want to capture a collectible, we click add there. And then we select an image that we are thinking of. Let me see if I have some data, downloads, collectibles. Collectibles tracker, let's say icons, pictures. Let's just take an image here, okay? With that image there. Extra large icons, let's just see. Size scroll bar. Maximum is 500 KB, okay. Now let's just say this is a secret map, for example, you know. Then we select our status. We have this is on hand. The current value is 120 US, and then select the type. It's a bold and equipment. So blah 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 blah. You know, this is not a wish list item because we have it. So we just select whatever text that we wish for, and then we save it. You know. So let's just see what happened. Okay, it hasn't saved anything as yet. So we just need to find out what the bug is. But the logic is working exactly like we want it to work. We're able to show the collectible screen. We just need to figure out why is it not saving. So save. Collectible details are not complete because there's this information that is required here. Let's just test again. Status on hand, current value 130. Select type is post Jersey. And then we save. Okay. So this one is saved because we have not specified a tag. Okay. So I just have to fix the issues of the tags. Let me see if I select the tag. Okay. But anyway, 130 sales price and all sorts of other things. Condition, it's at 90%, you know, highest value and all sorts of other things. So we can show the columns as we want. Now, for example, we can add columns here to calculate the total value of the current value, the sale price, the sold rate, and all sorts of other things. So, and then show other columns that are there. I'll just check the bugs in relation to why initially it didn't want to save. But as you can see here, you can show the columns that you want to show. And then as you can see now, wish list item, then automatically saves that. I'm just going to fix a few bugs, but basically this is the gist of it. What we have been able to do is create an application from Excel where, for example, we have converted the various items we saw and then converted into a working application. Then that brings us to near finality of this. The next part then will be adding the attachments for each of the collectibles that we have, and we're going to use the same premise in terms of having the attachment linked to the various collectibles that we have. So we're going to add totals in this table so that we see the value of each collectible. Let me just see what could be happening here. To forward. Okay, and then limit to this. Collectible details are not complete. Okay, on hand. Sports jersey. Yeah. For some reason it's not saving, but I guess perhaps it's due to something that I don't know. I'll have to investigate what is the cause. But as we can see here, the model here is a little bit squashed. So it might be a good exercise just to make this to be a single page and then work it like that, which it would not be a train smash to do. So for now, that's it. We're going to continue again and finalize this and complete the project. Okay, what we're going to do now is to actually add totals for all the monetary columns. So as you can see here, the columns with money, we set the default value to 0. Then column total, we can just check it so that at the bottom of the table, the values are totaled. So money, total there, and total there. Then we can decide that the columns that we want to total, we can just show or hide, you know. So that one is shown, That one is shown, etc., etc. The other thing that we can do is just ensure that the image data type is none and also the column type is none, so that it doesn't get displayed on the table. We've moved the pictures to the beginning of the model, so when we view that, the images are there now. So our collectibles user interface is basically complete. The text will be loaded from the available text, and then we can just select what we want. The other thing, due to the fact that this information here can be longer than 255 characters, and then the image, and then the text, we have to update our database, because currently the images are stored as base64 strings. So what we do, we change the description to the long text, we've changed the text to the long text, and we've changed the main picture also to the long text. This enables us to be able to store the images as base64 strings in the database. This is not usually recommended, but because we're just testing this application and it's not going to be a big application, we can actually use that particular approach. So that's basically what we have done so far. So as you can see, this is our user interface. If we were using the preference dialog, but we're not using that, we're using a model. So our model looks like that, and then our table basically uses like this. So what we have learned so far is how to create a model using the grid approach, where, for example, in each row there is more than one component that we have. So what we're going to do is we're going to compile the source code for the collectibles page. Then after that, it's confirming now whether they want to change their data type, because it's picking up that's a file input. So we've already changed the data type to the long text in the system. So what we'll do is just compile the application as it is. So we open it, and then we copy the generated source code, go to collectibles, and then we replace it. So as we had noted earlier on, there was a bug in relation to the text, and this now has been fixed. For example, we build the table, we build the mobile, we mount the collectibles. So when we mount the collectibles, we need to set the tags. For example, set the types, set the status, so that we have drop downs for all of them. And then for the tags, we have them from the select, from a group select. So let's just comment some of this code here. Select image, because we're not going to use this, and then we're going to be running the application. What I want to do on the build table, I want to move the main picture to the beginning thing that we see on the table. So I'm going to take it the main picture and then show the name, and then we run the application. So the first page that appears is the collectibles. So we can create a new collectible. Test collectible. We'll say destroyed. Let's say it's caps and helmets. And we can choose a image that we want to use. There is it. The wishlist item. Then we choose the text that we want based on the text, and then we save it. So it is there now, So if we want to delete it, we can. If we want to clone it, we can clone it again, So there it is again. But let's delete this one because we don't want it here. So currently we have 3 collectibles that we can. So you can capture as much collectibles as you have to create your records. So what we can do is to also extend this to add the various documents that are unrelated to each of the collectibles, and also add more item types, statuses, tags, and attachment types based on what is it that we want. So currently, this is all that the system is able to do. You're able to hide columns, You're able to show whatever you want to show on the system itself. We can extend this to make it much more. We have more functionalities as we see fit. But as you can see, the totals are there now. So yeah, this covers the whole tutorial now in relation to how you translate an Excel spreadsheet to an app. Thank you so much for your time to go through this.